In case you're wondering, I guess I should have done this at the very beginning, introduce ourselves. I'm Chuck Greenslate, for those who don't know. I'm the track announcer at Portsmouth Raceway Park, been there since 1999. And with me is Ashley Tackett. Ashley is from Beaver, Ohio, and she has been racing for the last 6 years, mostly in a Legends car. She's 22 years old, and she raced sport mods for the first time last year as well. Plus, she's an RC racer. So, Ashley, you've been doing a great job up here. With all this racing, you're not going to take my announcing job, are you?
Oh, I don't think I could ever do that. I can do about anything, but when it comes to that, I'm going to let you or somebody else, TJ, take the wheel, because that's not my specialty.
Well, you're doing a fine job. Well, let's tell the folks a little bit about you. Sum up your 2019 season for us.
My 2019 season was full of a lot of ups and downs. We started out in the Legend car running really good, had some top threes. About halfway through the year, had a pretty bad flip and ended up having to rebuild a new car from scratch, which is the red number 17 over here if you guys haven't seen it. Spent the rest of 2019 trying to tune it in and set it up and just get it back to my old car and what I was used to, which was a big struggle, and we're still working on it. Towards the end of the year, the last couple of races, like Chuck had said, I ended up getting a sport mod, so we spent the last 2 or 3 races trying to get seat time. Went to Brush Creek and Moeller and just tried to learn the ropes of it and follow some of the faster guys and see how it all works.
Well, knock on wood, I've never flipped a car of any sort, but I've heard people say that it's like it's slow motion when it occurs. Sky, ground, and then it falls as it may. What was your experience like when you got turned over?
Well, flipping, it was honestly like one of the things I was worried about since I started. I never experienced anything like that before. It took me 5 years and finally it happened, which if you race long enough, I've always said you're going to end up flipping or having a crash of some sort. And it's just like they tell you, it slows down. You pretty much remember every little thing and you wonder, is this ever going to stop? Like, you'll see the sky, then you'll see the ground, and once you finally land, it seems like time just slows down, and it happens in slow motion, really. But I got lucky, kind of just came out with a concussion, so ended up actually racing the next night, not knowing I had a concussion. Went to the doctor on Monday and had to sit out a couple weeks, but Legend cars are super safe, one of the safest cars around, so I was glad to come out of that ahead.
You know, you mentioned that the cars are safe, the Legends cars. What is it about them that make them so fun to drive and make them affordable?
As far as that goes, I think it's the affordability and the maintenance on them. We will race, and honestly, the only thing you have to do is change the oil a couple weeks, check the bolts. Unless you have a really bad crash, there's not much that goes into it, so it saves time to just sit back and relax and enjoy the time at the track, and you don't have to spend all week crashing on the car and working on them. And they're different. You don't see them very often around here, so people like things that are different. And that's what a Legend car is. It's all about just kind of making the playing field even and just everybody going out and having fun, not having to spend a bunch of money on a car, just something to do on the weekends.
You know, I first saw those cars probably 25 years ago or so now down in Charlotte when they made the little round track in the infield where they used part of the front straightaway there in the dog leg as one of the straightaways and then the tip road as the other straight. And when I first watched them race, I was like, yeah, but bearing in mind that's a completely flat track. After I saw them on a dirt track that had a little banking, I completely got a different perspective of those cars. When on the right surface with the right banking, those cars can be really, really fast and fun to watch. Wouldn't you agree?
They can get a lot of speed, yeah. We travel to, I'd say some of our fastest tracks is PRP and Atomic in Florence. The higher bank tracks, they get a lot of speed and you can pretty much just lock it down on the high side and just go.
You know, typically with the shows that the Legends cars are a part of, a lot of times you're going to be after a bigger late model race, sprint race, modified. You're usually toward the end of the program. By that time, usually tracks have maybe taken on a little rubber or at least gotten smoothed over, glazed over. So you're racing on some pretty slick surfaces, I would think. And just how big of a handful is that?
The slick surfaces definitely don't help as far as handling with the cars go because they are loose cars as it is. Legend cars, they were the first things I've ever driven, so I can't speak for them, but they say they're the hardest cars to drive. If you can drive a legend car, you should be able to drive anything else fairly easily, but I will speak from experience, they're very loose cars. You will spin out. It's a huge learning curve as far as that goes.
You know, much like the racing go-karts, I know getting those to go quick, a key element is to keep them straight and not be fishtailing too much. Just how important is it to keep the Legends cars straight?
That is key to driving a legend car. That's been honestly my biggest struggle, going from the legend car to the sport mod. The sport mod, you have to drive it so much harder than the legend car. When it comes to the legend car, smooth it's the faster way around. You can usually just keep it straight, and that's honestly the best way around the track in a legend car. They're not like any other car.
You know, that's a great segue to my next question, and you partially answered it right there. In addition to having to drive a sport mod a little harder than a Legends car, what are some of the other differences in driving styles between those two cars?
One of the biggest setbacks that I've faced was the sizing difference, because obviously you look at a legend car and they're extremely small, and then compared to a sport mod, judging how close you can get to other cars and how close you can get to the wall, that's one of the biggest struggles from going from a legend car to a sport mod. But sport mod, they have a lot more power than a legend car, so it's just trying to figure out where to put the power and how to keep it under control without getting ahead of yourself.
You know, racers have incredible hand-eye coordination, regardless of what type of racing we're talking about. But in addition to racing Legends cars and now tackling sport mods, you're a multi-time championship-winning RC racer, racing in the winter at the Barn Raceway. The remote control cars, does racing those in the winter, does that help you out as far as hand-eye coordination or in any other way when it comes to racing in the spring and summer in either a Legends or a sport mod?
Personally, I think it is a huge help. Anything you can do in the wintertime, whether it be RC racing or even iRacing on the computer, video games, anything that helps you just your hand-eye coordination, it will help keep up for the summer when racing season comes around. And with RC racing, learning when the best time to pass is and learning how to navigate through lap traffic and just common racing courtesy, it pretty much goes hand in hand with the big cars.
Give us an idea of the upcoming 2020 season, what your expectations are.
For 2020 season, we've got a pretty busy schedule. Going to try and race both the legend car and the sport mod, probably not in the same night. I've tried that and it's a handful. It's a big job for me, my dad, and Bill over there, trying to keep up with everything and going back and forth. But the legend car, we'll probably try and hit up as many races as we can around the area, and I'll just try to get seat time in the sport mod, and just learning how to drive it will be my goal for the sport mod this coming season.
Folks, if you have any questions that you would like us to ask Ashley, you'd like me to ask Ashley, I'll be more than happy to do that to you. Just shout them out and I will relay those questions along. Yes, sir.
Paul Jones would like to know if he get in that little car here, can he drive it? Does it have enough motor to pull him away?
This gentleman is asking, I think a little bit jokingly, but let's kind of make it
he's serious.
He's serious. If a guy that weighs, say, 220, 230,
Thank you.
You're welcome. If somebody weighs in that range, do the cars have enough power to really pull them away?
Oh, most definitely. We've got a couple bigger guys, 350 pound guys, 6'5", 6'6" tall that race with us, no problem. Might have to move the seat back a little bit, but other than that, you're good to go.
Tell folks about the motors in those cars who might not know.
The motors in the cars are actually 1250cc Yamaha motors. You can get them out of a SJ1200 motorcycle and actually put them right in the legend car and race them without having to change anything. So it's pretty convenient that if you need motors or any parts or anything, there are some out there to get, but they're just motorcycle 1250 or 1200cc motors.
If there's any other questions for Ashley, again, feel free to shout them out while you might be thinking of one or two. I'll go ahead and fire another one your way. being a female, we're seeing a lot more females racing today in various different classes. Do you find that a lot of young ladies, especially little girls, look up to you for doing that?
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot since I've started racing. I'll even be at the RC track and there'll be little girls come up to me and just want to hang out and just learn how to work on the cars and just hang out and spend time together. And that's honestly a big honor for me when it comes to racing, is just kind of being a role model for younger girls or even younger boys.
Let me approach it from another perspective. We've heard stories all our lives, at times or another, racers getting angry with one another. If some big burly dude gets peeved at you, and then maybe he didn't even realize that you're a female until he gets up to you, how's that all work out?
When it comes down to it, it doesn't change a whole lot in the beginning. They will still get upset with me and they will call me out for something if they're not happy on the track, but I keep Papa Bear pretty close in hand, and we all get along pretty good at the track, so we've never had any issues. We're pretty much one big family, so we've been pretty lucky so far.
Ashley, if you have any advice for a young lady wanting to get involved in racing, or just female period, what could you give them?
I would say just work hard and keep your head in the game, stay focused. Just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't go out there and outrun the boys just like they do. When it comes down to it and you're in the car, it's just another car out there. It doesn't matter size, gender, anything. It's just, you're just another car, so just stick with it and you'll get there.
All right, well, Ashley, thanks so much. Best of luck on continued success. You're doing a great job here today. Folks, let's hear it for Ashley Tackett.